The next day, the banquet was held. Rozenta welcomed each guest personally, carrying herself with grace despite her exhaustion. As expected, Vivian overwhelmed her with far too many gifts, while Theodore also presented one personally. The sight of the three of them, Rozenta, Theodore, and Vivian, so close and at ease, drew envious glances from the hall. By the time it ended, Rozenta was worn out. She retreated to her chambers, waiting for her maid to arrive. That was when she heard the caw of a crow outside her window. Frowning, she stepped onto the balcony, only to find Enoch leaning casually against the railing. "We meet again, Duke," he said smoothly. Her voice hardened. "What are you doing here?" He approached, his hand brushing lightly against her cheek. Instinctively, Rozenta shoved him back. "Don't touch me." He tilted his head, almost wounded. "You do like it." "I don't," she answered firmly. His expression darkened, a shadow of sadness flickering through. "Then, am I not even allowed to know your secret?" She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean by that?" But deep down, Rozenta already knew. He was talking about her being a woman. Enoch leaned back against the balcony railing, his gaze steady. "I want to stay by your side every day. I want to hear you call my name. But I know, if I wish to remain close, I must first prove myself useful to you." Rozenta nearly flinched. Was he confessing to her? The question burned on her tongue. "Do you love me?" But she swallowed it back. She couldn't forget who he was, the villain destined to fall for Eura, the saintess and true heroine of this world. Instead, she extended her hand. "Then let's make this clear. Promise me you won't reveal my secret." Enoch's lips curved faintly as he clasped her hand. That day, Rozenta and Vivian went to the palace to accompany Theodore. In the imperial garden, Theodore picked flowers and offered them only to Rozenta. Vivian immediately grumbled. "Why him? I'm the only woman here." The two bickered for a while until Theodore, give in, reached for another flower to give Vivian as well. While Theodore was distracted, Rozenta and Vivian chatted casually. But then Vivian's expression shifted, her face went pale. She pointed upward in panic. "Look, the sky." Something bright was plummeting straight toward Theodore. Without a thought, both Rozenta and Vivian dashed forward to reach him. Rozenta shouted for Theodore to look up. Startled, he dropped the flowers in his hands. The falling light from the sky shifted suddenly into the form of a girl, landing directly in Theodore's arms. He froze in place, stunned, while Rozenta called his name in alarm. The news spread swiftly across the continent. The saintess had descended from the heavens, straight into the emperor's embrace. When word reached the Holy Empire, they declared the saintess must belong to them and dispatched priest Conadal to retrieve her. The next day, Theodore summoned Rozenta. In chamber, Eura, the newly fallen saintess, lay asleep on the bed. Theodore had stayed by her side all night. Rozenta raised an eyebrow and teased. "So, have you already fallen for this beautiful creature?" Theodore gave her a flat look. "If I had to fall for someone beautiful, it would be either Vivian or you." Rozenta's smile faltered awkwardly. "Me? Beautiful?" She wondered with unease, was she truly so striking even while disguised as a man? Theodore asked after Vivian, and after a brief exchange, he and Rozenta made their way to the meeting hall to discuss the saintess. The council debated what should be done with Eura, but no conclusion was reached. Before they could decide, word arrived that envoys from the Holy Empire had already entered the palace and gone directly to Eura's chambers. When Theodore arrived, he found priest Conadal clasping Eura's hand. Fury overtook him. He rushed forward, trying to pull their hands apart. But before he could, a brilliant light flared. The glow stirred Eura awake, her eyes opening softly in Theodore's direction. To everyone present, it was a divine sign, proof that the saintess had descended for the emperor himself. Yet Rozenta felt only a sharp headache. This isn't how it was supposed to go. In the novel's prologue, Theodore needed the saintess. But now, what followed was predictable. Everyone focused on calming the saintess, while the priest treated it almost like a ritual of indoctrination, explaining the world, her role, and the divine value she carried. Surprisingly, Yora listened quietly and accepted it all with calm composure. When Priest Conatal urged her to return to the Holy Land, Theodore didn't intervene. Rozenta glanced at him and asked if he wasn't going to stop them, but Theodore remained indifferent. Whether Yora stayed or left seemed of no concern to him. The commotion dragged on until Theodore finally stepped forward. He asked Yora directly whether she wished to go with the Holy Empire or remain in Helwa. Instead of answering, Yora tilted her head and asked softly, "If I wanted to go, would you let me?" "Yes," Theodore replied without hesitation. A faint blush spread across her cheeks. "Then, do you want me to stay?" "If I said yes, would you?" "Yes," she whispered, and with that, Yora declared her choice to remain in Helwa. Conatal chose to remain in Helwa, insisting he would assist Yora until the day she agreed to return to the Holy Empire. But ever since Yora's arrival, Theodore felt something was wrong. Whenever she drew near and called his name, his chest would pound uncontrollably, not with affection, but with a sickening sense of being forced into feelings he never wanted. He tried to avoid her, yet Yora always found him. It happened again. She greeted him sweetly and asked if he would have lunch with her. His instinct screamed to refuse, yet before he realized it, his lips had already answered, yes. His body betrayed him, moving as though under a spell. Theodore's gaze darkened. This isn't desire, this is manipulation. Rozenta summoned her butler and asked about the search for a personal attendant. He reported that the available candidates still lacked polish and needed more training before they could serve her directly. Rozenta instructed him to broaden the search. If the internal candidates were unsatisfactory, he could look outside the estate as well. Origin didn't matter, but someone had to be appointed within 2 days. With that settled, Rozenta left for the palace. Vivian was already waiting there. The moment she saw Rozenta, she rushed forward and hugged him tightly, chattering about everything that had happened since their last meeting. Amused by her liveliness, Rozenta gently patted her head. Vivian's face flushed and she puffed her cheeks. "I'm not a child anymore." Rozenta laughed softly at her reaction, then guided her toward the dining room, where they were to meet Theodore. At the dining table, Rozenta and Vivian kept the atmosphere light, chatting back and forth, but Theodore remained silent. His frown hadn't eased once. Noticing, Vivian leaned forward. "Theo, do you have something to say? You've been frowning this whole time." "It's nothing," he replied curtly. Vivian narrowed her eyes. "Nothing. You don't need to say it twice, I can tell just by looking." Theodore smirked faintly. "Of course you can. You used to have a crush on me after all." "I did not," she grumbled, glaring at him. He tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Vivian pressed again, more serious this time. "What's going on with you?" Rozenta tilted her head. "If you don't want to tell us everything, at least say if it's related to the Saintess." Vivian nodded sharply. "Yes, please. That woman nearly gave me a heart attack. My parents even grounded me afterward because they thought my health was at risk. But what bothers me most is that she managed to upset you, Theodore. I never could, not once." Rozenta chuckled softly. "So you're upset because Yora managed to trouble him before you ever did." Vivian's eyes widened, trembling with outrage. "How can you say something so awful?" The mood lightened again, even drawing a laugh from Theodore. "I didn't realize you still had feelings for me, Vivian." Vivian shook her head furiously, her whole body trembling. "Never. You're not my first love, you're my mortal enemy." At last, Theodore exhaled and began to voice the unease that had been weighing on him. "Lately, I've been having strange experiences. It's as if someone is trying to control my emotions, forcing me to feel what I don't want to feel." Before he could continue, noise erupted outside the dining room. A maid was struggling to hold someone back. "Please wait, the young master is with guests." "I must go in. He promised to have lunch with me." The doors flung open. Yora swept inside, ignoring the maid's protests. Theodore's expression instantly hardened, his face colder than ice. She approached and, without hesitation, sat beside Rozenta. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched her hands pitifully. His Majesty said he would have lunch with me, but I never received an invitation, so I came myself. Vivian's jaw tightened. Normally, people ask beforehand in situations like this. Or, her eyes narrowed. Did they not teach basic manners in the world you came from? The air turned sharp, tension pressing down on the room. Rozenta, sensing the heavy mood, attempted to redirect the conversation. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Rozenta. Yora quickly cut in, smiling faintly. Oh, I already know you. I also heard you have a lover. I'm curious. What kind of person is she? Before Rozenta could answer, Vivian's voice lashed out, sharper than steel. The Saintess seems far too interested in other people's private lives. Her patience snapped. She pushed her chair back and rose to her feet, glaring down at the table. His Majesty, I should leave. With the Saintess here, it feels like I've become the uninvited guest at someone else's meal. And since she and I aren't acquaintances, I'd rather not risk her saying something that ruins my appetite. Her words left the room heavy and still. Please sit down, he said firmly. I won't. Vivian shook her head, her tone sharp. Something inside Theodore snapped. His voice thundered across the room. I command you to sit. The sudden roar stunned everyone. Silence fell, and Theodore froze, horrified at his own words. He quickly covered his mouth, trembling. Rozenta, sensing the situation might spiral further, rose calmly. She leaned close to Theodore and whispered, Let's step out. I'll arrange another gathering later. Without waiting for argument, she gently steered him away, leaving Yora behind. As they left, Theodore murmured, Sorry, but his voice was too faint for anyone to hear. Outside, Rozenta turned to Vivian. Why were you so aggressive with her? Vivian's eyes burned with certainty. Because I saw it. I was sitting right in front of her. She wasn't crying, Rozenta. She was smirking. My instincts tell me she's dangerous. Back in the dining room, Theodore sat stiffly. Yora leaned toward him, her tone soft and falsely sweet. Are you all right? Your fiancé left with the Duke. She let the word fiancé linger, twisting the knife. Most people believed Vivian and Theodore were engaged, and she clearly meant to use that rumor against him. But Yora didn't stop there. I've also heard that Rozenta and Vivian are very close, like family. If I didn't know better, I'd think the two of them were meant to be engaged instead. Theodore's fists clenched under the table, rage boiling in his veins. For the first time in days, he felt in his right mind. He slammed his hand down and shouted, Watch what you say. His chest heaved, but there was also a strange clarity. He had just resisted, broken through whatever had been pulling his strings. Theodore rose, glaring down at her. Be careful with your words, Saintess. I won't warn you again. Then, without another glance, he left the room. Outside, he staggered slightly, a hand pressed to his chest. Why did I feel jealous? When he heard Yora suggest Rozenta, and Vivian could be engaged, his heart had twisted painfully. Am I jealous because of Vivian? He shook his head immediately. No, impossible. Vivian is like a sister to me. But when Rozenta's face came to mind, something sharp pierced through his chest. His breath hitched. It feels like I'm going mad, he whispered to himself.